Welcome to Living the Reiki Life podcast. Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Kristi, and we're coming at you from the Prairie Province of Saskatchewan, Canada.
We met in the corporate world over a decade ago and became great friends. We started our Reiki journey together, and now we are Reiki masters. Follow along as we navigate life living the spiritual world while still working the 9 to 5.
We gather twice a month to chat all about Reiki and our Reiki journeys, energy healing, and other healing modalities.
We are going to interview some of our gurus and cover a vast majority of topics that we find interesting, and hopefully you do too. Let's get at it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome in. It is episode 7. You're with Kristi and Amanda here.
Oh, hello there. I am here.
And today we are talking all about mediumship on the podcast here. So first, Kristi, like how's the week? How are things going? Anything new and exciting?
What did I want to share? Oh, I wanted to share about a sound bath experience I went to. So my friend and I always wanted to go check out a sound bath, and I was kind of waiting to see like when one was available that resonated with me, because I felt like I didn't want to just go to just any old sound bath, because it puts you, well, someone like me, it puts you in a vulnerable position, because sound is like vibrating all your chakras and it's opening you up. So I wouldn't want to be opened up in like a weird place or someone that wasn't heart centered that was doing the ceremony. So this one guy that I follow, I'll link him below, 8th Chakra, I think it's called. So he was doing one out at Crossmount, and that's just outside the city. And Crossmount is just, it's a magical land out there. Like it's only like, 8 minutes outside the city, but when you're there, it just feels like you're in a different place. Like they have apple orchard. Yeah, they're growing apples and they're making hard cider. And yeah, it's just a super cool place to go. And he was doing one outside. So my friend and I went, and everyone was kind of like laying down, and you lay with your head towards the singing bowls, and he has a singing bowl for each different chakra. And we got there, and there was like a space like right in front, right beside the singing bowls. And I was like, okay, I guess that's where we're laying. So yeah, we laid down and he started playing, and it was going to be for an hour. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a long time. And it was just, it's hard to explain what was happening. Like I could feel what chakra he was on. And when he was at the crown chakra, and he kept playing the bowl, and I was like, okay, let's move on. Cause I could feel my crown just expanding. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's enough. And then he'd move on. So I was like, okay, good. So he has awareness too. He's not just playing bowls. Like he knows what he's doing. And, I was seeing like colors, and I'd see animals. And then there was a spirit that creeped in. There was this younger brunette woman that was just laying there, and she was just looking at me like in my mind's eye. And I was like, okay, yeah, not today. Like, go away. This is time for me. So I'll just close my door. And she was just there in the distance. She left me alone, which was nice. And then another weird thing was like my hands were vibrating. Like I could feel like the Reiki energy flowing through me, and I didn't know what to do with my hands. So they were kind of like moving around, and it was a super cool experience. And after that, I just felt so like blissful and open. And I phoned my friend and I told her about it, or I left her a voice note, and she's like, your voice even sounds so much lighter and clearer. And she's like, I felt like it cleared a lot in your energy field. And it really did. Like, I don't know, those sound baths are just something else. I would totally go back to one, but do your research before you go to one. I know he also does them. He's like at the Roxy Theater, like on 20th Street. And then he's been like in a church before. And I was like, no. I would never go to somewhere like that. That's like too like downtown in the core. And then in a church, there's a lot of energies in a church, like good and bad. And I just felt like being outside the city was like the best spot to be in.
Yeah, you would think you'd probably clear the space a bit. I mean, and put up protection so like the outside energy couldn't creep its way in. But you're right, though. Definitely go with what calls to you. And those other two locations don't. And yeah, Crossmount is beautiful for anyone who isn't from Saskatoon. My cousin got married out there and it was absolutely stunning. Well, that sounds absolutely beautiful. Those singing bowls are absolute magic. Like, and they've been around forever and ever. It's very ancient healing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like from like Tibet and things like that. Like mine is a Tibetan singing bowl. And I just know that kind of music has just been around forever. I don't know a ton about it, but that's a beautiful experience you had.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. And it just, it vibrates each chakra. And then he had chimes he was playing as he was walking around. And then all of a sudden it felt like 20 minutes. And then he's like, okay, it's done. And I was like, holy cow, it went super quick.
Right? Probably because you were like up in a different dimension, right? Just like downloading and kind of left your body. Yeah, it's awesome. I love when that happens.
Me too. And it kind of forces you into that meditative state, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I kind of had not as kind of similar experience. I had a massage with Reiki over this last little while, and that was absolutely amazing too. She used a singing bowl like on my heart chakra, like on my back, because that's the best way to access your heart chakra is through the back. And she like put it on there and I could feel that vibration, and same thing. It was so awesome. It was like I could feel it opening, and just that vibration through my body was just, it was such a good massage to incorporate that. I think every masseuse should have like some kind of Reiki understanding. And she used chimes as well on me, which was super neat.
Oh, chimes, that sound just like makes my body tingle. I don't know what it is. I just love it.
Yes, it's like pinging something open and just almost like awakening the dead cells almost.
Yeah.
That are just that are just stagnant.
Gets them moving.
Yeah, and it was super cool. Even before we started the massage, she actually took a pendulum and she sat across from me and she read each one of my chakras, which I've never had my chakras read like that. So she just had the pendulum up and it would swing and she'd be like, oh, yeah, really good and open. And she'd give me a little blurb on each one. And I thought, wow, this is a really cool experience. She's been practicing Reiki for quite a while. I'll link her. Cosmo Massage. She's a student. She's been doing Reiki for longer than I have. But the best massage. Like, it was so good. And I love that vibrant people who are starting out just have like a zest for it, So she had a lot of enthusiasm. She was super fun to be around. I felt amazing after. So shout out to Janessa.
No, that is amazing. And I love, like, they're working with their hands, so it makes sense to incorporate the Reiki. Yeah. And then you just like get both going.
And you know what else? She actually even she's like, let's set an intention before you leave today. And I was like, yes.
Oh, I like that.
I know. Let's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost feel like I should do that at the end of my Reiki sessions. Let's set the intention to just move on today and let love and light in and feel your empowerment. Yeah, it was super good.
Yeah. What a good way just to close it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. She sounds very like heart-centered and just like aware and just like where she needs to be healing. And the amazing part of that, like when you're a massage therapist, you can get more clients because they're going to use their benefits for massage and Reiki, which would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely open it up for a lot more people being able to come.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then that's a good like gateway for people going for a massage and curious about Reiki. You can combine the two, and she's got a good thing going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Anything else, or should we get into the astrology update?
Yeah, let's see what's going on in the stars.
Okay, so August is an absolutely wild month, everyone. So like buckle in. So first we have a full sturgeon moon coming in on August 1st in Aquarius. And then we have another full moon on August 30th. And these are both full supermoons. So the term supermoon means that the moon is actually closer to the Earth at this point, and the moon looks larger than it usually does. So when we have 2 full moons in 1 month, that's called, we have a blue moon, the full blue moon. So that expression, like once in a blue moon, actually comes from this, because we only ever get 2 full moons in a month, like every 2 to 3 years. Like this is super rare. So that full moon energy is going to be, really intense. And then we also have the Lion's Gate opening on August 8th. So the Lion's Gate portal will be opening, and that's a huge time to manifest. Hey, Kristi, you've had a lot of experience. Yeah, the Lion's Gate. I know we both definitely take some special time out to really harness that energy. That's a really big date in astrology.
It is. It really is. And I think the last couple years I have spent so much time outside and been really intentional with that day. Ever since I started my Reiki journey, that's really when Lionsgate opened up.
Definitely. Same here. And then we have the new blue moon in August 16th in Leo. So Leo is the card in the tarot deck that is the strength card. So in traditional tarot, the picture will be a woman who is petting or taming a lion. So really it really fits into astrology, tarot does. And it may be a really good time to look at what you're good at and what you can pull your strength from and really just harness that energy. And with all this crazy energy going on in August, I decided it would be a really good time to do a new moon ritual on the 16th, or even doing it on August 8th with using the Lion's Gate to call in some abundance. So this is a spell I found from Magik. I'll link her in the show notes. She's so witchy and amazing. She even wears a witch's hat, and I love her. She's super out there. She knows exactly who she is, and she just has great stuff online. She might be too out there for some people, but I absolutely love her. She's harnessed in her divine feminine, and it's very empowering.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, she is out there, but I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. So I'm going to do this, and I think you're going to join me on this, Kristi. Hey, we'll do it separately, but we'll both do it. So I'm going to do this to call in abundance, but you can do this to call in a relationship, anything you want. So keep that in mind. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take a candle. Usually it's a pillar candle. You don't really want one that's too large because you need to be with it as it burns. So it's usually a skinnier candle. You can find them at stores like O2 in Saskatoon. Any crystal store will usually have colored candles. You want to select the color of candle that you want to draw in. So if you want to draw in abundance or prosperity, you could choose green or gold. If it's love or sexuality, it might be red or orange. If you want to banish something away, maybe you want to do a releasing spell, you're going to want to make it black. So the next step is you're going to carve in it. This is important to note. You need to use something that is natural to do the carving. So your fingernail, a sharp wooden stick, even a chopstick. You could use the point of a crystal, as long as it's natural to do your carving. And you're going to carve as much or as little as you want into your candle. So for me, since I'm going to do abundance, I'm going to do money signs. I might write words like money or wealth or power, just things that resonate with me. If it was love, you could draw hearts and whatever love represents to you, even if it's self-love. And then we are going to rub our candle with oil. Now, again, use whatever oil you have, whatever resonates. Magik talks about using walnut oil, I guess, is a really good one. So I actually might make a point to go to the store and pick some walnut oil up. But again, whatever you have is fine. When you're applying the oil, you want to start at the bottom and rub the oil upwards towards the cosmos, because that's where you're sending your message out to. And then we're going to cover the candle in herbs. This is important. You want to pick out herbs that, again, call to you, and whatever you do have in your house. Cinnamon is a really good one for making things come quickly. So I'm definitely going to be using that because I don't want to wait 3 years. I want all my manifestations to come right now. For me, since I'm calling it abundance, I'm going to use thyme, which is a super old spice that people have been using forever. It's supposed to be very good for any spell you're going to use. And basil is supposed to be really good for abundance. Mugwort is going to be really good if you want to try to call in your psychic abilities and harness that connection with spirituality. So I might even throw some of that on because I have some. Rosemary is really good if you're trying to harness that sexual energy and your divine feminine, like Rose and Mary. So 2 very strong feminine energies there. And you can also put it under your pillow or even put it in your bath as well. So just other things that I heard. If you're trying to bring in a baby maybe, or try to bring in some fertility, lavender is supposed to be really good for that. So just other ones. And then sage too is also supposed to be great just to help ward off energies that are around you when you're doing it. Pretty classic one, or Palo Santo as well. Okay, so you have your candle, you've rubbed it with oil and your herbs, and now you are going to write out your spell. This is important. Your spell is going to rhyme. So here's an example that she gave. Goddess, please bestow upon me the blessings of prosperity, for I am a servant unto thee, requesting to be financially free. And then you're going to burn your candle and you will say the spell 3 times, a total of 9 times. So when you're writing out your spell, it needs to be 2 or 3 rhymes. And then you are going to sit in meditation and watch this candle burn. So you're kind of committed to a 2-hour thing here. But we have such powerful stuff going on in the cosmos right now at the Lion's Gate and the 2 supermoons. Like, this is honestly the best time to do this. And I really encourage it. By you sitting with your candle, you are showing your commitment to this thing. You're setting aside 2 hours. You're feeling wholeheartedly into this, and you are just really putting it out there. And this is supposed to be like the best spell. So give it a shot. Let us know how you did on Instagram, and we will post ours as well and give updates if anything crazy has happened.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I love working with fire and like candles. But my husband Troy hates candles, like hates them. Yeah, because he lost his house to fire. So it's like any kind of fire burning. It's like I'll light a candle and then it'll be out. And then I'm bad. Sometimes I forget to blow out a candle. So it's probably good that he's there to blow it out. So I don't really like candles. But this one, it looks like you're supervising the candle. So
yes, the whole time.
I would be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd be okay. And even watching the flame, like I've been able to see images in flames before. Mm-hmm. So it'd be cool to see what happens with this one when you're like intentional with the candle and the herbs and seeing what comes. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, I think this is going to be good. So I'm going to try to carve out 2 hours after my son goes to sleep at night and commit and do this.
Yeah. When are you going to do this? Like on the full moon or new moon?
I think I'm going to do the new moon.
Yeah.
I feel like the Lion's Gate, will still be open around that time. I mean, it'll be 8 days, but I think it's still going to be good. I'm going to do the new moon.
Yeah. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay, let's hold each other to this.
Okay, I'll get my candle next time I'm at the crystal store.
Yes, we both need to buy candles.
Yeah.
So we're talking about mediumship today.
Yes, this is a topic that I could talk about for days. And this is actually part of our level 3 Reiki was mediumship. So we did the past lives, and then we also learned how to connect with loved ones in level 3. So we wanted to share what we learned through our journey with it and some stories we had to share and what mediumship actually is. Yes.
So when we talk about mediumship, we are talking about being the middleman in connecting to spirit. This can be connecting to archangels or past loved ones, ascended masters, or even a goddess.
Yeah, just being the messenger really is what we're doing. And So I found this information from James Van Praagh. He's a well-known medium. He's been doing this for a long time. And he was talking about the term psychic is often used for anyone that works with the paranormal. So everyone just kind of puts it under the psychic umbrella. And so psychics use their sixth sense, also known like as your intuition, your gut feeling, a hunch, or something you just can't explain. And a medium is a psychic who has fine-tuned his or her extrasensory perception and can interface with the spirits in other dimensions. So that's us being that messenger through spirit, through us to the client. And we're able to feel or hear thoughts, voices, mental impressions from the spirit world. And a medium is also able to completely be receptive to the higher frequency or energies where the spirits vibrate. So it's like tuning our energy into the spirit world. It's like, I picture it as like a radio dial, and like spirits say is at like 118. So we're just turning our vibration up or down to make that clear connection so we can talk to them.
Yeah. And I'm still like, for me on my journey, it still takes me a while to like find that right sweet spot. And sometimes I don't find it. And that's just what happens.
I've been there too. Like sometimes there's a lot of factors that can play into that as well. That why that radio dial isn't tuning. Like it could even be the person on the other side. They could be closed off, or their loved one is quiet and they don't want to come forth. Like there's so many things that can happen. And something else that this James Van Praagh says, that everyone is psychic to some degree or another, but not everyone is a medium. So this has kind of been up for debate for a long time. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually, like, I think everyone actually has the ability, whether they're closed off or not. Like, what am I trying to say? No, like, I think everybody has the ability actually to connect in, but it's whether they're open to it, and it's where they're at in their life, you know? So like you and I are super into this so that we're more open and we're more receptive. And let's say someone else doesn't believe in any of that. Maybe they're atheists. They don't believe in spirits. So they're of course going to be closed off, not receptive to it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Or if they have super religious background, they're not going to be open to that. They're going to be completely shut down because it's against what they believe in. But I do believe everyone, if they wanted to, could strengthen this and do it.
Yeah, like I believe everyone is born with that psychic sense. But to be able to connect to the other side, I don't know. Like everyone can to a certain degree, I guess. And like what Rhonda said with like playing hockey, everyone can put skates on and have a stick in their hand, but you might not be Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
Or it just depends on your body, your mind, your spirit. I think like all those factors come in, and even like past lives or your astrology, like there's so many different factors here that come into play. But I think the most important one is having that belief that you can connect and that there is your loved ones on the other side.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So how do we know when we are connected in? Maybe some of you are starting out and you're like, well, how do I know? Well, for me personally, I have a sense of knowing and feeling. I will take on certain traits of the person. Like I will hunch over or stand or act a certain way. I can tell when Goddess Isis is working with me and I'm doing Reiki, as my hands and body will move like in a certain way. And I can also just know that I've connected in. Like this is a little tougher to trust, but you get used to it. Like the more you practice, it's just like if I asked you, do you know what an apple tastes like? And you're like, well, yes, I do. And then you can kind of describe it without having it in front of you, without tasting it. You just know what it tastes like, and you can see it in your mind's eye as well. Like it's just practicing that kind of knowing. What about for you? How do you know like when you're connected in?
I think it's like a feeling. It's like an anxiety feeling.
So a really good feeling comes in for
Oh
me.
yeah. Like it's like when spirit has come by like really intense, like my heart will just pound and I will start sweating profusely.
Yes, body temperature change is a big one. Yeah.
Yep. And then sometimes I get chills that run up and down my spine. So it's like a full body experience.
Yeah, it is.
And it depends, but sometimes like it can be more subtle, like ringing of my ear, or like it's like I have all the clairs going on, but that's like one of the strongest feel is the physical feeling. And then after that comes through, then I can usually start to see in my third eye what's coming through. And then I can start to hear. And then sometimes, I just know this is your grandpa. I just know this is your sister. And I have no way of knowing this. I just know, which is, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And you just, the more you practice this, like the more you just trust what's coming through as well.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, just that practice, strengthening that muscle as you go.
Yeah. So like with the whole practice and like strengthening, I always have to give like a heads up because I am still pretty new at this. Like, because I only really got into this when we took our Reiki level 3. So it's not something I've been practicing all my life. I will try my best to always connect in, but I always give like the caveat, like I can't promise anything. And it just really takes the pressure off of me to perform, so to speak. Yep. And like, this is not something you can fake. My mind will go completely blank if nothing comes through. Like I wouldn't even be able to make up a random story if I was even supposed to. And obviously, if you're not connected in, like the client's not going to resonate, right?
No.
It's like, so yeah. The sincerity won't be in my voice. And the best way for me is to like not think about it and like strengthening the gift. We said about hockey, like I didn't learn to play piano overnight. It's going to take me a few months, a few years before I can just sit down and play and be confident and strong and not have to give the disclaimer. And the more time I put into strengthening this gift, like the better obviously I'm going to get out of it. So like one of the best things I could say if you're trying to like strengthen your gifts is to like offer free readings on people again and again and again. There are tons of social media support groups that you can hop on if you are interested. And you can also take a class like Kristi did, and it might be more motivating to practice if you're paying for the course.
Yeah. Yeah, that course I took through the Squamish Medium was worth like every cent because it did keep me motivated to keep going. And I learned so much, and they throw you on Zoom with a practice person every week. You have 2 to practice with. And that's like where my growth and my confidence really came from. So if that's something you're interested in, I would definitely sign up for something like that.
Yeah. Do you have any like examples you want to share about your practicing through that?
Yeah. The one came to mind when we were talking about like when nothing comes through. So this one girl that as soon as I signed on, or when we were chatting when we could meet up, I had this weird feeling about her. I was like, I just don't know if I don't know. I just had a weird feeling that I'm not going to be able to connect with this person, which is kind of odd because I was doing really good in all my practice readings. So I hopped on with her, and she was very like ego based. I found like I've done this, and this, and I'm really good at this, which confidence is great. But I found it to be, she wanted to kind of like intimidate me a bit, I found. So she did a reading for me, and it was okay. Like it was more, I don't even know if it was more mediumship. I think it was more psychic at that point. But I tried connecting in with her, and it was like just a wall. Like I couldn't get through, like there was nothing there. And I felt like she was purposely putting this wall up. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I don't have many people in spirit. And she's like, but I do have one person in spirit. She's like, can you try and connect with her? And then she told me all about this person in spirit. So it gave me nothing to bring through. Like there was no evidence that I could bring through that I was connecting with her loved one. So it was just like that practice reading was just it was a learning experience though, because you have to learn to hear no. and keep your vibration going. Like that was one of the really important things I learned in that course was if you're like, okay, I see this guy, he's got a hat on, he's older, he's got a cane, and the person's like, no, don't know that person. So you can't stop there. You need to keep going. You cannot change your connection to spirit at that moment. And it's hard to hear no, because you're like, oh yeah, I got this. And then they're like, nope. And you're like, okay, that's okay. Let's move on.
And this reminds me of when I had my reading with Rhonda. And she brought up that person who died in that boating and drinking accident. And I was like, no, right? And then what happened 3 years later, everything clicks in and it resonates. So even if something doesn't make sense to that person right now, it might later on.
Yes, that's very true.
Another good example of don't be discouraged if somebody like doesn't resonate, and still deliver the message. If it's coming through, just throw it out there. And if it doesn't resonate, well, that's fine, but it might later on.
Yeah. And sometimes I found that I would connect with like a great auntie or a great grandpa that this person has never met. And they would talk to their mom about it. And they'd be like, oh my God, that's great Aunt Velva or whatever. And,
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, you just don't know at that moment. So it's coming through for a reason. And yeah, it's so important just to say what's coming through. And another reading that comes to mind was, I thought I wrote this down, and I did, but it was all of my notes like in the actual mediumship session. So it was like very point form. So I went through it trying to figure out, okay, I want to find out like the details of this story. So yeah, in this reading, I was able to bring through this girl's grandpa. And I kept hearing like Lulu. And I was like, well, this is weird. And I was just like, and he kept saying it. So I was like, well, I'm just going to say it. And I said it. And she's like, oh my God, that's what he used to call me. And I was like, okay, well, good thing I said that.
Right.
And he showed me flowers being put in a terracotta vase at his gravesite. And I was just didn't think much of it. I was just like, oh, okay, this is what he's showing me. And this was really significant because her mom wasn't able to go to the funeral and go through everything because it was in Mexico and this was during COVID. So when she finally got to go to the gravesite and put the flowers in the vase, it was like a big deal to her because she was finally there with her dad. What was interesting is he started speaking to me in Spanish, and I was like, okay, hold on. I was like, I can only understand English. So he ended up translating to English, which was really interesting.
That's super interesting.
Mm-hmm. So no matter like what language they spoke on Earth, it can be translated to what we can understand. And he took me to the day of his passing, and he was in a hospital, and someone was holding his hand. And people were wondering like if he knew what was going on at the end of his life because he was not conscious at that time of his passing. But by him showing me that, it showed that he was acknowledging whoever was with him when he passed by holding the hand. And he showed me how he passed. So he had fallen out of the shower and hit his head. And I saw him on the bathroom floor. And his son found him, but he did not call for help right away, which was really weird. And the client, or my practice client, she said, yeah, there's a lot of suspicions around why he waited so long to call for help. And the paramedics did come and they did help him. So they never did find out why the son waited so long to call for help. And I asked him and I didn't get an answer. So I felt like spirit didn't want to go into that, or maybe I was still learning at this point. So I just kind of left it alone. Okay. So when the mom was able to go to Mexico and see the gravesite, she went to his home and she found out like all of her belongings were thrown out, like all her photos, all her childhood stuff was all thrown away. And her brother was living in the house along with a bunch of other people. And it was the whole thing, she said, just didn't feel right. Like it was just a weird situation. And the family had a lot of like resentment and questions and wondering like what really happened. But when I connected with this grandpa in spirit, he didn't want to talk about any of that. He showed me himself like dancing, and he was happy, and he wanted his loved ones to know that he was happy on the other side. Like he didn't hold any resentment as to the way he passed away. So when I told this to my practice client, she was so happy to hear all of this, and she couldn't wait to tell her mom about this story, how he was happy on the other side and he had no resentment, like there was no hurt feelings. And it was kind of like a message for her to move on. Like, it's okay. We don't need to go and dig this because nothing is going to happen. So just remember me as happy and dancing, and keep that alive, I guess, in your heart. So
That's the best part about doing this, is that delivering that message and just having them feel that closure and feel relief that everything is okay and they don't have to worry anymore. And I just love that. I just love that energy of giving them that. It's like a gift.
it really is, because like where else can you find that?
For you to have those specific details about the Lulu, like, that's what really, like, now I'm invested. Like, what do you have to say? Like, that's not just something, not just generic. Well, that could be anything, like this is really specific and like meant for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like one of my first big readings that came through very clear. And I was just like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, that's really good. So like for me, spirit comes through a lot when I'm doing Reiki. I don't know if it's because I've set the stage. I've called in all my guides and angels. It's like a opening ceremony, but that's when I'm the best channel as of right now. So like earthbound spirits seem to find me and I can communicate with them and help them cross over. When I'm doing a Reiki session on someone, I will know pretty quick if there's like an earthbound spirit that's attached. And it's usually in the crown is where they are, but not always. And then I can get a glimpse of their life. And usually I will get like how they've died first. So that's kind of how I know that there's someone attached. Like all of a sudden my hands will kind of go around my neck or hold my side or something like that. And I can just get the sense like, oh, there's someone here. And then I'll usually get a snip of them either like pacing back and forth in a house or just somewhere where they're not settled. So, one time I actually started like fathom punching myself in the face and I was like, what is going on here? So once I get that, I can usually like communicate with the spirit that way, and I can call on Archangel Michael to help me, and then we can cross them over. So it's like little pieces of the puzzle that kind of come together, and then I can just help them move on. One really good example that I had when I was like first starting off with practicing my mediumship, I was doing a Reiki session, and I was with a client and her grandfather came through. So it was kind of the same way how it started. Like I gave the disclaimer, this might not happen, but I think there's somebody here. I don't know if it's maybe a spirit guide or a past loved one, but we can see. So I'm doing my thing where how I connect in. So I'm meeting at the bridge and I'm just imagining spirit coming over the bridge to communicate with me. And right away I like hunched over and I was like, I had my hand like on a cane. Like I could tell that I was, again, I had that feeling that I was an old man as opposed to an older woman. And I was, she connected in. She's like, oh yeah, that's definitely my grandfather. We actually just had a celebration of his life because he had passed a while ago. And then I could see clips and images of his life that resonated with her. So that was really good. And it felt really good after the session. And this was one of my first experiences channeling a loved one. And I think even we both might have had some tears, and he was just the nicest old man and the energy felt so good. And after the session, he's like, it'd be really nice if you gave her one of your crystals, because I always have like these quartz crystals in my windows just to help pass the energy out. And like, yes, that would be really nice of me, wouldn't it? So I ended up giving her a crystal, and the whole session was just, it was so powerful. And it just really kind of jazzed me up to like keep going and keep practicing because I want to have more experiences like that. It was a great way to like end our Reiki session. Gave her a lot of closure as well.
Oh, see, I just love that. That like gives me so much meaning to keep practicing this gift, you know, just to be able to give those messages to those people so that they can heal and find that closure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really good. But again, like the way for me to really connect with spirit is I have to kind of be in that vibration. Like I'm in that dial tone on the radio when I'm in Reiki, you know? And so like if anything wants to kind of come through, like of course I put up protection. I protect the room. Only good energy is allowed to come through. So we're always setting that intention first. So nothing ever really feels scary when I'm in that space. Like ever. Like the odd spirit who's kind of like manic that is attached might feel a little, but then we calm them down right away with Archangel Michael and I can just send them off and I've never had an issue.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's why it's so important to set the stage and set your intentions and that you're only connecting to the highest and greatest good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I just like picture this payphone like up in the ethers and just anyone can go pick up this payphone. But it's like, no, I don't want just anyone on the street picking up this phone. I want someone there with intention, that we can bring healing through this phone call.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, another story that comes to mind when we talk about mediumship is like the first time I connected to a loved one in spirit was with my aunt, and I shared that story in episode 1. So if we fast forward like 15 years later, 15, yeah, I think that, or 20 years. And this was after our first Reiki attunement for level 1 and 2. So that's when your Reiki master attunes you to the Reiki energy and opens you up. So my crown chakra was like wide open and I had no idea what was to come in the next coming weeks. But this story was super, super powerful, like just to build my confidence and trust in the world of spirit. So this happened, it was in the winter, and yeah, probably about like 1 or 2 weeks after our attunement, I was out in the country at our house in the countryside, and it was really cold out. And when I woke up that morning, I wanted to go outside for some reason. And I didn't know why, because I was like, well, there's nothing to do out there right now. It's like super cold, but something told me to go outside and sit with the trees. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can do that. And I heard, bring the tree an offering. I was like, okay, well, that's weird. So I was like, what does the tree want? So I brought some old coffee grounds and I walked out there, put my boots and my toque on, and I walked out to this one tree that's like at the back of our yard. It's super old and it's a pretty cool tree. So I went in there and like dug around the trunk and like dumped the coffee grounds, and like, okay, well, I'm done here. And it's like something told me to sit and stay with this tree. I'm like, okay, I guess I will. So I went and sat on this one branch by the tree. And yeah, I was just hanging out there, and all of a sudden I heard hello. And I was like, well, this is weird. And I looked around, and it's like you're in the middle of the prairies. You would be able to hear someone walking through the snow. I could hear hello, like clear as day. So I just kind of ignored it. And then I heard hello again. And I was like, okay, like what's going on here? And I felt someone come up from behind me, and I couldn't see anyone. So I knew it was a spirit. So I was like, well, I guess I'll be polite and talk to the spirit and see what's up. So I was like, hello back. I was like, who are you? Because it's always important to ask who someone is when someone comes through, I find. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I'm Frank. And I was like, okay. I was saying, well, I don't know a Frank. And I was like, well, like Frank who? Like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the owner of this land. He's like, I used to live here. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, that's enough. I just ran inside. I was like, this freaked me out. Yeah. Because it was so clear. It was like this man was sitting beside me having a conversation with me, and I could not see him. Like I couldn't see him in my mind's eye. It was just a clairaudient experience. And so I came inside and Troy was sitting on the couch and he looked over at me. He's like, what happened? So he's like, you have this weird look on your face. And I was like, who the F is Frank? And he looked at me. He's like, Frank? He's like, oh, you used to live here. And I was like, what?
Just nonchalant. But
Yeah.
I guess he doesn't realize like what's going on yet.
No, well, then he was all confused. Like, why are you asking about Frank? And because his house is old, like I think it was built in the 40s. So his house has like a lot of history. And Frank was one of the people that lived here, and he passed away. So then Troy told me more about like the history of the house and who Frank was. And yeah, so that was a really cool experience, because just that validation of who this man was and who I connected to, like that wasn't random. It was like, that was real. Like you cannot deny that. And we had like, and then when I talked about our house clearing that we had a couple years later, she said that Frank crossed over, but we still see him in the yard. Like I see his like him standing there, but like far away. So I feel like he just kind of checks in. Yeah. Just likes to see what we're doing. So we're always doing something in the yard. We're redoing something, fixing something up. And I think he just likes to see what's going on in his house. And now he knows this isn't his house and he has moved on. So
Yeah. Especially if they have such an attachment. Sometimes they don't really like it if you're doing like changes or structural things, right? And you guys are always like working and doing good stuff on that house. So it's probably, just check in. Yeah. I wanted to talk about interesting Reiki experience that I had when I was doing Reiki on a client, and spirit really came through me this time. Like it was almost like a trans channeling experience. If anyone's familiar with that, it's like when you kind of step aside and they like use your body as like a vessel. And this didn't feel bad. And it wasn't like right away, I kind of think of the movie Ghost, when he like jumps into Whoopi Goldberg's body and she's talking on it. It wasn't anything like that. Like I was in complete control, but I was kind of just like stepping aside so they could like come through and deliver a message. It was a really different experience. So I was doing at the end of our Reiki session, I was like, okay, well, I'll try to connect in. Same thing. And so when the spirit came through, so first, like they showed me how they died. And so like my hands went to my body where like they had died. And I asked like, did they pass of this? And I'm going to be very generic because I don't want people to connect in who this is. And I was getting a flash of the scene of the night that they had passed away. And she was confirming all of it. She's like, yeah, like that's what happened. And then all of a sudden my heart just filled up, like again, that whole body experience, and emotion had just took over me. And I just I almost was choking on my emotion, and I just burst into tears. It was like the spirit had just come in to my body, so to speak, but not in a scary way. Like it didn't feel bad. And I was in complete control of the whole time, but I started to just overwhelmingly like sob, and because of his emotion that had come over, and started talking to my client. And it was one of those things I didn't even have to think about what I was going to say. Words just started flowing out. And even like my hands even like went and like touched their face and just was like consoling them, because they were crying at this point too. We both were. And I even had to stop and grab Kleenex, and like, so I was still in control. And then we'd kind of carry on with the rest of the things that they had to say and deliver. But after the session was done, like we both like talked it out, and I was completely myself and in control, and made sure to cut my cords after as well, because that's really important, especially when you're doing that kind of work. I want to cut my cords from my client and from the spirit, just so I'm like back in my own body, and make sure we grounded ourselves after. We're not floating up in that radio dial. We're back here in the present. And this is a really good, important note about setting intention. So my client had been calling that person in for days leading up to the session. And they had seen many mediums and had readings done many times before, and then been waiting to hear from the specific person. And this was the first time that they had been waiting to hear these specific words that I had delivered during this session. And it was like the Lulu thing. It was just like, that's when you know that this is real. It's like, I've been waiting to hear these words, and that is exactly what came through. And so it was a comfort thing, and just letting them know it's okay. And I'm always with you, and I'm acknowledging you, and just examples of times that they are with them. And yeah, it was probably the best experience I've had, even though it's kind of the weirdest, and it might make people feel a little uncomfortable hearing that. But honestly, it didn't feel bad to me at all. And I thought it was a really good experience overall.
Yeah, I remember we met for coffee shortly after that happened.
I know. I was like, oh my God, you'll never believe what happened.
Yeah, and like, I'm so glad we share or saved that story for in person, because it was just such a powerful like session. Like, that doesn't happen every day, and just being able to bring your client that comfort and hear what she wanted to hear is just like, oh, that just like makes my heart so full.
Yeah. It was a really wild experience. Definitely one of my top, probably. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And as our journeys go on and we experience more of this, and we'll have more stories to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another story that comes to mind. So this didn't happen in a Reiki session. This had to do with people I knew. So I don't think I've ever done a reading for my family, for like past loved ones, because it's hard, because when you know someone so well, it's like putting that logic brain aside to the spiritual. It's like, am I just saying this because I know this, or is this coming from spirit? Like, I'm still learning how to decipher that back and forth. But this experience was, this one was pretty wild. And this just happened in November. So I lost my cousin to cancer in November. And one second. Oh, didn't want to get emotional about this one. Okay. Yeah, it's still fresh. So Troy and I were driving to Alberta. So about, I think it was like 5 hours away to the funeral. And the funeral was that day. So we left that morning. And it was winter time, not the greatest driving conditions, but whatever, we were on our way. And I think we're about an hour away, and I get a text from my cousin. I'm going to call him Darren. So my cousin Darren, and it was his wife that passed. We'll call her Tracy. So Darren texts me, all it says was hi. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird. I was like, Troy, what do I say back? Like, hey, we're on our way. Like, hope you're hanging in there. Like, like, what do you say to someone, like, on the day that you're burying your wife? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I felt my cousin come into my crown. Like, I felt that crazy feeling of like your heart pounding, sweating. And I'm sitting in the driver's seat of the car. Troy's just driving, minding his own business. And here I am sitting there, and I can see my cousin Tracy in my mind's eye. And I see her there clear as day. I can feel her. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? What's going on? And it was so intense. Like, my crown, like, the energy was almost spinning. So I was like trying to ground myself and like be like, okay, like feel like I'm not going crazy in that moment. And she showed me her husband, Darren, sitting in the church, like in a chair by himself with like his head in his hands. And he's like, I can't do this. Like, just having a really shitty time. Like, grieving. Like the day of the funeral is one of the worst days ever, that morning leading up. And I was like, well, like, what am I supposed to do, Tracy? Like, what? And she's like, you need to tell him that I'm okay. And this, and this. And I was like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can deliver those messages to him on this day. Like, I didn't feel comfortable because that side of my family doesn't even know I do all of this, because I don't know if they fully believe it. Like, I know like they've made a few comments about like hocus pocus and woo woo, you know, and it's just, there may be a time and place where I can share this part of myself with them, but I'm not going to volunteer it. But the interesting thing was, the summer before Tracy passed, she's like open, but she has a lot of faith in the church, right? So I don't know, it depends on the person, I think, with like the mediumship and that and religion. And yeah, I guess it just depends on the person. But so that summer I was doing my Reiki Masters. It was like the week after we were at the reunion, and I just had this urge to tell Tracy about, hey, I'm taking my Reiki Masters. It was just the weirdest thing. It just came out of my mind or out of my mouth. And she was like, oh, I've been going for Reiki to help like through my treatments. Like, she was doing all the things for her cancer treatments. So she knew all about Reiki. So we had this really beautiful conversation about it. And that's why I believe that she came to me, because spirits on the other side will come to who is open, knowing that their message will get delivered. So yeah, we'll go back to the car where she's there telling me to deliver this message. And I was just like, I can't do this today. And she's like, you need to. So I sat there and I just started crying. And Troy's like, what's going on? And I told him, I was like, I don't know what to do here. I'm having a conversation with spirit. My cousin's texting me, like, what do I do? And he's like, just tell Darren we're on our way. We'll see him soon. I was like, okay, did that, never heard back. And to this day, he never said anything about that text. So I believe that was Tracy texting me in spirit.
Yeah, he probably got a ping, right? Like, oh, you need to text Kristi. So he did.
Yeah.
And then, you know, too, like, he probably got busy with everyone else, right? Naturally.
Yeah, in that moment. He's probably, someone came to console him or.
Totally.
And then what? So, yeah, I was talking with Tracy still, and we're trying, and she's very persistent. Like, she was a principal. She's like, very like, let's get this done. I want this done. So I was just like, okay, I can't do this today. I was like, what can I do to make you feel better? And she gave the best hugs. Like, you know, when someone gives you a good hug,
yeah,
she gave the best hug. So she's like, when you hug Darren today, he will know that that hug was from me and that I'm okay. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So I'm still like just frantic at this point. And of course, me always running a little behind schedule. Like, we pull up to the church, like right on time. And I was like, I can't go in there feeling this way. Like, I cannot go in there. Like, I was a mess. So what I did next, not a proud moment.
I think I know.
Not a proud moment at all. I might get judged for this, but hey, it was the heat of the moment and I'm learning. So I looked in the back seat and we had a case of beer. I grab a beer, I crack that beer open and I just chug it. We're sitting in the church parking lot. People are walking into the funeral and I'm sitting there drinking a beer. I didn't care at that point. I was like, I want this to be shut down.
I assumed you were having like maybe a cigarette.
Well, that beer. That might have been a little more socially acceptable.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, yeah. So that was like looking back now, of course, like I could have done this, and this, right? Call an Archangel Michael and ground myself, like all these different things.
The thick of it.
Oh, yeah. Like, and when it's loved ones like that are close to you, it's hard. Like, that was a really crazy experience. So yeah, I sat there, I composed myself. And the weird thing was, so my cousin made, I think, like 500 cancer ribbons, like yellow ribbons that everyone would wear. And I looked down and I had a feather on my pants. And I went to pick up the feather with my finger. And the way the feather turned into the cancer ribbon on my finger. And I have a picture of it that I'll share.
Oh, cool.
And so I was just like, hey, that was her. And yeah, we went in. And I was okay. I hope I didn't smell like beer. Just like,
you know, yeah. If it was my family's funeral, that would have been no one would have batted an eye.
No. Well, being in a church, I was like, oh my goodness, this is not good.
Like, oh, yeah.
Like, turn away, turn away.
Yeah. Oh, so did you deliver the hug?
Yes, I did at the end of the funeral service. Like, of course, everyone's hugging Darren and he just looks exhausted. Yeah. And I went in and I gave him like this big hug and I felt it, but he didn't really react to it. But weird thing was, so we went to his house after and we're all hanging out and it's me and him in the kitchen. And all of a sudden I start asking him about the dog. I was like, why is a dog outside? And is it an indoor dog? Like, what's going on? He's like looking at me like, why are you asking me all this? And that dog was like Tracy's like dog. Like that was her dog. And I could hear it barking outside. And I was like, how are you sleeping, Darren? Are you okay? And he's like, just looking. And this was my cousin Tracy talking through me, I felt, and asking him all these questions that otherwise I probably wouldn't think to ask. So that was kind of a neat.
That is so neat. And did you ever deliver the other like message after?
No. And you know what? I just saw him this weekend and he's still pretty raw. Like so it wasn't the right time.
Yeah. You'll know when the time is right.
Yeah, I think so. And he actually showed me a heart that he got made, blown glass with her ashes in it. Oh. And I was holding it and I was like, oh, it's so pretty. And my mom was like, well, did you feel anything? And I said, no.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
And, that also could be a good sense that she's at peace and that she's moved on, which is a good thing.
I think so. Like, I think she's hanging around her and him and the kids and just watching out. But then, like, the thing with ashes is I feel like that's our physical vessel, Like we're so much more than our physical body, but it was a beautiful way for him to have closure and have her close by.
Yeah. And that's a really good also thing to point out. Like when you're practicing your mediumship, like being vulnerable and just, you need to do this with a really open heart and just like knowing how to deliver a message is just so important. And, you could have been like, oh, hey, like something's coming through and kind of tried to push it on his throat and not be tactful like you were. Like, it's so important to be vulnerable and sensitive when you're working in this field as well.
Yeah. Like just because you're bringing through a loved one, you don't know where that person is on their grief journey. Like, yeah.
And you don't want to be coming from an egotistical place, just because maybe you're proud that you've been able to channel a message and you just want to share it. Like you still have to be, respectful and soft, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Like you push your ego aside. It's not like, hey, look at me. I can connect to loved ones and I got a message for you. It's like, no. Yeah. Let's take a step back and see the bird eye view of the situation. Like, is this person going to receive this message okay right now? Or is this something we should save for later? And that's kind of a debate that people talk about. Like, are we working for spirit right now? Or are we working for ourselves? Like, should we pick and choose what messages are delivered and to who? It's like, I think it's a case by case thing.
I think it is, like using your discernment on that for sure.
I think so. And I feel like when the time is right, I will know and I can deliver that message to him. And I would like to connect with her again at that moment and just see if she had anything to share with him. But yeah, that's something that I'll have to wait for when it feels good.
Yeah. Speaking of like divine timings and things like that, I've done Reiki on one of my best friends for like ever since I've started. Like she was like my first paid client. She's always been a huge supporter of me and I love her to death. And just, it's so nice when your friends support you when you're trying to make a business and you're trying to get started on something new that's hard. And I've done Reiki on her a ton, and her father had passed away. And the very last time she came in for a Reiki session, her father actually came through during our session and we were able to connect. And this was actually right in the middle of our Reiki session. Like usually at the end I'll try to channel, but no, he came through like when we were actually doing the inner child work that we talked about in episode 2. So we were going into the chakra and going into her childhood, and he actually came through and connected in. But, you know, all the other times we did Reiki, never did. And I had my level 3 at, you know, those points that he could have came in, but it just seemed like this was the right time. And this was when it was supposed to happen too. So just trusting that divine timing, and that spirit does know best as well. Yeah, it was really interesting that never came through before. But again, it was a really cool experience because she could actually ask questions and get answers that she really needed an explanation on. So it was a really cool experience. And that's another great thing about doing this work, is just the closure you can give to people as well is really needed. And it's a good gift.
That is. And yeah, that just shows that maybe he wasn't ready to pick up the phone on the other line, or maybe he was busy doing other things. Like, I remember Haley, when she did her practice session on me for mediumship, spirits sometimes have jobs on the other side and they're busy, which I found interesting. Like, she told me that my uncle was, he was sober for a lot of the years, and he was really involved in like the Alcoholics Anonymous, and she saw him on the other side in like this garden he created. And when spirits crossed over, and he would meet them, like the people that dealt with addictions, and he would sit with them and hear their story and hold the space for them. And I was just like, that is totally him. He loved to chat. He loved everything like about just visiting with people. Like that was his jam. And I was like, yeah, that's totally him. So that was pretty neat.
That is neat. I've also heard that like spirits can go through a transition period as well. So if you've had a spirit a loved one that's just passed and you want to connect in with them, sometimes there's actually a lull period of when they've actually fully crossed over. So again, if you're trying to connect in and it's been really soon, you know, let that breathe a bit and then go back to it as well. Yep. Like don't blame it on the medium that, you know, they weren't good. Well, no, sometimes there is that transition period that we just need to be respectful for. You know, when somebody does cross, they do have to go through a life review, and that can take as long or as little as it needs to take, right? So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. They're busy doing stuff. Like yeah, there's even this one girl, I listened to her podcast, and she's a medium, and her dad passed and she wasn't able to connect with him until a whole year later. So that just shows like it was her loved one, and she's a medium, like she can pick up that phone, but it took that long for her to make that connection. So
yeah, and there's no sense of time on the other side. So it's like be a blink to them.
Yeah, and then a whole year to us on Earth.
Yeah, you know what I think of? I think of the movie Beetlejuice. You know when they like cross over and they go into like the other side to see the ghost. What would she be? She's working in the underworld. Anyways, by the time they get back to their house, the whole thing has changed. And they're like, how long are we gone for?
And it doesn't seem that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's funny.
I have one more example, just quick about. So I was doing a distant Reiki session. And again, when I was doing the session, like the grandmother came through and was delivering these messages, and I was trying to write them down. And I was like, okay, well, great. Well, when I talk to her on the phone after, I'll just connect in again and I'll, you know, see if she has any more questions and we can just go that way. So I didn't like really talk to her a lot because I figured I'd talk to her later. So I'm on the phone after, we're on FaceTime, and I tried to connect into this woman again because I had my client on the phone, and nope, crickets. So it was just like I could not get into that vibration again or what. But it was like, yeah, it was really too bad. So I was like, oh, that's a good lesson. Like if I'm connected in, get as much information as I can, because it's not necessarily going to happen again. Or maybe they were just done delivering and that was it.
Yep. Like the message was done and then they went back to whatever they were doing.
Yeah. It was too bad though. I was kind of disappointed, but hey, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. And sometimes like I won't remember what they said. Like if I don't write it down, like it's not my information coming through, it's spirit. And sometimes I totally draw a blank.
100%. Yeah. If I'm not delivering that right in the moment, then it'll go. It'll come and it'll go. And it's just like, yeah, it wasn't your own thought. So it doesn't stick around.
Yeah, it's like a movie scene. It like comes in and then goes out, and comes in and then goes out. Like that's how I experience it sometimes. And there's something else that I wanted to share about my grandpa. So all my grandparents have passed, and my aunt found an article written in the paper like years ago. Like I don't even know what year this was written, but it was saying that my grandpa was hit by a drunk driver, and like he broke his hip and he had like substantial injuries. And my mom and her sisters are like, we never heard anything about this. Grandma never said anything. Grandpa never said anything. Like, how could he not talk about this? And then I heard, this wasn't me. Like, this didn't happen to me.
Oh.
And I told Mom, I was like, hey, that didn't happen to Grandpa. They got the story wrong in the newspaper. And back in the day, they're not going to reprint the newspaper, right? No. The whole town would talk and they'd figure out, okay, it wasn't Grandpa so-and-so, it was someone else. So, and my mom's like, that's the weirdest thing. She's like, Dad and I said this wasn't him. They had that feeling too. So I told Grandpa in spirit, I was like, if this is true, can you send me a coin? Because he collected coins. And I was like, but send me like an American coin, like a foreign currency. And like next day I'm looking, can't find it, right? Because I'm looking for it.
Come on.
But I let my guard down, and it was about, I think it was like 2 weeks later, I was walking out of work and there was like American 25 cents like right in front of me when I was walking out the door. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go, Grandpa. So, and of course, like I'd like to tell my my aunts that like about this experience, but I don't know if they're open to it. So I just kind of let it be. So if it comes up, maybe the time might be right, but I'm not going to put myself out there for that. I don't know. I guess that's part of the witch wound still, right? That ridicule and judgment. And
yeah, no, I'm pretty like, I'm a little reserved too, to be honest. Like I don't really like bring it up unless other people start talking about it. And I'm not, it's almost like you're worried they're going to be like, well, show me a trick then, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't have anything to prove. I don't just flip it on like a light switch. Like I have to be in my Reiki space and in that vibration. Like, no, thanks. Like, yeah, I don't know. I keep that a little closed off too. And maybe with time, we'll just feel more confident about it. And it's already becoming less taboo. I mean, there's podcasts like this all over. You can search anything. You can find anyone now, you know? So it's like definitely more open. But yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I just don't want to be treated like a circus act, you know?
Yeah, like it's kind of disrespectful, right? Like it doesn't feel very good when someone thinks.
No, it doesn't.
It's like a circus act.
Like I've had like my one friend, he's like, I don't believe in any of that shit. Like none of it.
Okay.
He's like, I don't get it. I don't believe in it. And I was like,
great.
Fair enough. I said, that's your beliefs. I go by what I've experienced. So
yeah.
And that's what's true in my heart is the most important. Like I'm not here to prove to Joe Blow that spirit is real. If you don't believe in spirit, that's your journey.
Yes.
And this is mine. So I'll respect yours. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I would never push anything on them like, hey, this is real. How can you not believe in this? It's just like, I don't even waste energy on that. You just leave that alone.
Right. And we have to respect the fact that their soul is here for their own work this time around. And this is like, you know, them exploring the spiritual route is not in the repertoire. So that's fine.
Yeah, that's totally true. Like someone in my life, she is very, goes with the flow and like life is what it is. Like she never thinks about life after death or her spiritual journey. Like she's just here, just being a mom, being happy and just living life. And that's her journey. And I totally respect that. And, you know, sometimes I admire that because it looks a lot easier sometimes, you know?
I know. I was listening to that Matthias DeStefano, and he can remember his past lives. Super interesting guy. I've listened to a lot of his podcasts, and he talked about he had one past life where his like whole thing was like dedication to the church and spirit, and he's like, I have no desire for that this lifetime. And like, he can remember. So it's like, he knows what's out there. He knows what this is about. And he's like, I just want to have fun this time. Like, I just want to play PlayStation. Like, I really actually don't even like religion. Like, it's hilarious. He's like, I've already been there, done that. Like, I'm not here to learn that again. Great. Yeah. So funny,
because
the
it's
awareness.
that would be amazing. And yeah, the journey into the spiritual world, yeah, there is no manual, like we said. Like, it's the unbeaten path. Like, it takes a lot of guts to do what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I just really wanted to quickly touch on people who experience spirit coming through in dreams. When you will know when spirit is coming through in your dream, I've heard that your body temperature will actually change. So, I mean, it is good for us to have dreams where we remember our past loved ones. I feel like there's also that kind of sense of knowing, like you'll know when it's like you just dreaming about a past loved one or spirit, or if it's like them actually coming in to deliver a message. You'll definitely know the difference. My grandpa actually came in the morning that I was going into labor with my son. So I like woke up because I was dreaming of him. He came through in a dream. I woke up and my water had broke, and I thought, oh, that's so awesome to know that he's with me during this new chapter I'm about to go through and this new experience I'm about to go through today. And it was super warming to know that he was there. I thought that was really special.
That is super special, especially, and then remembering that dream too.
Mm-hmm.
Like remembering him there and then at that moment. And that just shows like our loved ones are always there, no matter what. I believe in that wholeheartedly, that they are always around. And especially like weddings, babies being born, like big life events, of course they're going to be there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. So just another great way. And you can also set that intention before you go to bed too. Like, so-and-so, can you please come and connect in? Just like, let me know you're okay. Or if you want to try to communicate that way, that you can definitely do that.
Yeah. I've had dreams of loved ones coming by and just like showing me that they're okay. Like we're just sitting there and we're holding hands and we're not even talking. And I just know that that's them. And they're just saying they're okay.
Yeah. And they're with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all we really need, right?
Yeah. I don't need like a whole experience of someone like swooping into my crown.
Yeah. Crying for 3 hours.
Yeah, like the dream time is always so gentle. I really appreciate that.
And that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, there's your train.
There's a train. Yeah, choo choo.
Okay, so we are going to end off our podcast with a card pull. So I'm doing the pull this time. It's my turn. And I actually did it ahead of time. So I have 2 crystals here that I put on the cards. I really liked that idea, what you did. And I thought that I would do the same thing, actually. So I am using my angel deck. Of course, I will post this on our Instagram. And I believe it's a Doreen Virtue deck. And the first crystal I have is Tiger's Eye. And the second one I have is Orange Calcite. So think about those 2. See which one might resonate with you. Kristi, did you pick yours?
I did.
Okay, good. Okay, so for the Tiger's Eye, the message that I got was, you are dabbling in mediumship. I thought this was hilarious that this card, mediumship, came up when we were doing our mediumship episode today. I actually laughed and I was like, you just can't make this stuff up. Like, it's hilarious. You are dabbling in mediumship. Really pull from your divine feminine, whether you're a man or a woman. The feminine is where our intuition comes from, which is actually the right side of our brain and the left side of our body. Being nurturing and honor the softer side. And remember, when you're practicing your mediumship, make sure that you put up protection by calling an Archangel Michael and just picture a cocoon of healing light around you. So this message is really about, using that feminine energy and not pulling away from it. I think sometimes we think if we're really pulling from our feminine, it kind of makes us weaker, and that's absolutely not true. It can actually make you stronger and definitely vital to use. For the orange calcite, this one also kind of had a similar message, but it felt like this is more for like our Reiki practitioners out there. So the first card that came was that you are a powerful light worker. And on the card, she looks like she's like Reikiing a plant. So this is a really big call for you to time to step in and start practicing Reiki if you've been thinking about it. You are definitely a powerful light worker. If you're listening to this podcast and you thought about this orange calcite, there's no coincidences. So a really great thing for you to start with is start working and Reikiing on plants. You would do really good and your connection would be stronger if you were outside. So if you have a garden outside, or if you just have like, even a plant or a potted plant outside, and you can start with Reikiing the plant, and you will notice that it will feel the energy. It will get more life and love to it. Also, crystals. Working with crystals is a big one for you too. You can even put a crystal in your plant. Kristi actually just gave me a plant with it and put a crystal in it, and it's a great idea. It can really help the plant grow and connect. And also when you're outside, you're going to feel really connected to fairies as well. So a way to honor them, you can actually call them in to your garden and outdoor space and just invite them in to work with you. And it'll really help you like advance your abilities. And that is it.
I love that.
What did you pick?
The orange calcite.
Oh, yes. And you're such connected to fairies.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Oh, yeah. And you would totally connect outside. That message was for you.
Yeah, I feel like it was. And I do need to get outside and start raking some plants, because I got some strawberries that are just leaves. Like there's no flowers. And I was like, I should do a little Reiki here and see what happens, right?
You should. And put a crystal out in there.
Yeah, I should.
Yes. Just see whichever one calls to you.
I want some strawberries.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for listening to our episode. We hope you learned something new and was inspired. And you can find us on Instagram at Living the Reiki Life.
And you can find our personal handles at Reiki with Manda.
And mine is The Birch Soul.
It would also really help us out if you gave us a 5-star rating and review.
It really helps us out in the podcast world.
And we will see you next time.
Ciao for now.